In 2025, 34,000 nonprofits closed their doors. This year, it's predicted that between January and May of 2026, between 4,000 to 7 nonprofits will close their doors. What that mean? 350 to 400 closures per week, a 10 to 20% increase over 2025 monthly closure rate. Let me repeat that. 10 to 23% increase over last year during the same time. If the trends continue, between 40,000 and 45,000 total closures will take place. This will make 2026 the worst year for nonprofit survival in 2 decades. This workshop is built for every nonprofit leader navigating in the day's national crisis. Whether you're fighting to survive, or preparing to scale. If any of these describe you, this training was created with you in mind. Be it an existing nonprofit struggling to secure funding and facing repeated grant rejections. We're here for you. Organization operating with limited or no staff, where one person is doing the work of 5. We are here for you. Nonprofit at risk of losing funding of those that have already lost critical support. We're here for you. 40 operational organizations experiencing a surge in community need because of all the people that are being laid off from work. And you're seeking funding to expand and to diversify your funding. We're here for you. Nonprofits seeking or searching for new revenue streams or supplemental income to keep up with the rising costs. We're here for you. And finally, anyone who's ready to learn high value skills, including grant writing, where professionals can earn $50 an hour and us. And most importantly, nonprofit leaders at every level of education and experience. From funders with a 9th grade education running a one-person nonprofit to CEOs with doctorate degrees leading national organizations and everyone in between. We're here for you. We work with all of them. And this workshop delivers the tools to meet your everyday, to meet you exactly where you are. If you're ready to stabilize, to strengthen, and grow your organization in today's challenging climate, this workshop is for you. Sit back as we prepare the night's presentation. Across the country, nonprofits are facing the toughest climate in decades. Funding cuts, raising demand, workforce shortages, and a growing crisis in public trust. Organizations that once felt stable are now fighting just to keep the doors open. But this moment isn't a challenge, it's a turning point. Today's workshop is designed to equip national leaders with the tools, strategies, and systems needed to not just survive this disruption, disruption, but to grow, innovate, and lead the non-profit sector forward. If your mission matters, and I know it does, then this is the room where you get the roadmap to protect it, strengthen it, and scale it. Today's workshop is going to be broken into roughly 4 areas. First is your organization ready? Second is, what is your program design? Next is, what do funders look for when funding a nonprofit? And finally, how do funders grade grant submission? This presentation is going to be an intense workshop. So let's get ready. Throughout the presentation, I'll be stopping and letting you digest the information that I present. So let's start off with legal and copyright notice. So it's unauthorized, any unauthorized production of this presentation is strictly prohibited. So let's talk about the state of nonprofits between 2025 and 2026. 50% of nonprofits will close its doors in the next 12 months. 19+% jobs were lost in the nonprofit sector, and that was in January of 2025. These numbers are up substantially in 2026. 43.5% of nonprofits operate with no paid staff, and these numbers are growing as well. So what has been the economic impact on funders? First, lost jobs has spiked. In May of 2025, 3,900 jobs was lost that particular month. 2026, those numbers have gone the roof. Inflationary pressures. Well, economic uncertainties is striking private giving. And then finally, funding decline. There has been a decline in terms of major donor contributions. So what is our vision and our mission? Well, our mission is to empower organization. And our vision is to create a positive change through empower nonprofits. As I always say, nonprofit rocks. So what are our core specialization? Well, those 4 areas that we specialize. Program development, neighborhood planning, social entrepreneurship, and best practice. I'm going to pause for a second so you can take it in. Excellent. So what has been our impact since we've gotten started? Well, we've provided nonprofit and agency training across 37 states, which total over 3,500 nonprofits that have been provided. We provided training just like the training you've seen today from around the country. This training is one of 15 trainings that we do. The other thing is that we've assisted organizations to start that nonprofits and providing them with the paperwork to do so for over 35 nonprofits nationally. We've also worked on community initiatives supporting, but not limited to, housing, workforce, health models, etc. So, what are our learning objectives? Well, foundational knowledge, understanding bylaws, purpose statement, and articles of incorporation. Regulatory compliance, navigating the IRS 1020 application and state solicitation. Financial basics, securing your EI and understanding the state exemption. And lastly, strategic growth, identifying the three strategies or three stages of a nonprofit plus a whole lot more. Your learning objectives, in short, is to come away with the tools necessary to survive in these times of crisis. So let's talk about definitions. When it comes to a nonprofit, the legal definition is that it's a tax-exempt entity designed to advance the public good. There are essentially three stages of operation for a nonprofit. The first stage is the emergent stage. The second stage is the intermediate stage. And finally, the third stage is the advanced stage. I'll pause here for a second to give you an opportunity to take in the information. Okay, now this next topic is very important because you should understand the different types of grants. The first type of grant is called a restricted grant. The second type is called a restricted grant. And then you have your capital grants. And finally, you have your matching grants. I'll give you a second to digest this information. Now, what about the grantors? The people that's giving out the money, the moolah. Let's talk about the different categories of funders. You have your individual, you have your foundations, corporation, the government, and others. Let me pause for a second for you to take in this information. Okay, let's go. Where is the money? And how do you get to the money? There are roughly over 25 plus thousand funders that are out there funding any and most causes that's out there. Let's talk about how do we tap into this? What are the core platforms? For federal grants, you want to use both grants.gov, you want to use the sam.gov, you have to register with sam.gov just to go for a grant, put on a federal level. And then you want to definitely tap into the foundation directory online. This has changed. The new name is called Candid, CANDID. Literally, there's over 20,000 funders that you can identify using this software called Candid. And then, of course, there's AI. You can also use AI as a mechanism to search for funding and specialize and then finally you have your specialized databases, including instruction, instruments, grant station, and grants forward. But that's only part of the process. Knowing where the money is only the first step. Knowing how to secure the money is the most important steps to actually getting funding in this day, this age, in this crisis. So what is it that funders look for? Well, let's look at it. Funders look for your sustainable financial model. How is your organization different from another nonprofit? What hard and soft support data support your position of the need and the problem? What are your measurement tools? We're going to talk about that. Reason for starting a nonprofit. What's your value? How are you in terms of network, partnerships, and collaboratives? What is your accounting practice? Funders take all of this into consideration when they look to fund a nonprofit. That grant should be plausible, feasible, sustainable, and it should be sellable as well as fundable. And we start out by being able to identify the statement of the problem. That is, what is it that you're trying to solve? And dealing with the statement of the problem, we're looking at two core areas. First, the purpose, and next, the requirements. Let me pause for a second while you take in this information. Now that you have an understanding of what the problem is, now you have to collect the data to support your finding. There are basically two methods of research. One is called qualitative research, and the other research is called quantitative research. Let me pause for a second while you take in this information. Now that you've identified what the problem is, now comes a section when you put together the program that you want the funders to support. There are essentially three key components to your program design. First is the purpose. Second is the components. And finally, it's the alignment. Let me pause for a second while you take in this information. Well, how do we do this? And we do this by evaluation, using an evaluation framework. And what do we mean? Well, the purpose of an evaluation is to demonstrate if the program achieves outcome and support accountability. What are the different phases of an evaluation strategy? First, you want to talk about the input. What do you need to do it? Activities. What do you plan to do with the money? And then next, outputs. How many people are going to benefit? Second, outcome. How will you change that person that's different than when that person came into the program? And then finally, related to the outcome, what will be the impact 1 year, 5 years, 10 years from now? Another critical component of nonprofits is creating a 5 year strategic plan. What funders want to see is a roadmap as to where you plan to be in the next 5 years. And it's broken up into four components. The first component focuses on the environmental scaling. The second focuses on the priorities. Next is the operations. And finally, the governance. Take your time, pause, and take in this information. Now that we've got that done, the next thing funders want to know is what is your what is your SWOT analyst? And it looks at four areas. It looks at your internal and then it looks at your external. In terms of your internal, it looks at what are your strengths? Also, what are your weaknesses? In terms of external, it looks at your opportunities and what are your threats. If you make it through this class, you will be in a better position to increase your opportunities of getting the funding. This is a new day, and we'll provide new opportunities. So let me pause for a second and let you take in this information. Now, the question becomes, how do you become sustainable? We use what's known as a social entrepreneurship plan. What do we mean by definition? That is, creating earned income while pursuing core social impact. Now, your plan includes blending charitable contributions with earned income and public subsidies combined together to get your greatest bang for your money. Then comes the budget. Now, the budget should divide it into two formats. First is direct costs, and second is indirect costs. Your direct costs and your indirect costs. I'll pause for a second and let you digest the information. Okay, so we're heading into a total different dimension. When it comes to grant language for the federal government, as well as for some other private sectors, the, the language is shifting. The legacy language like at-risk population, underserved, disadvantaged, and deficit framing is changing. Modern day language is historically excluded communities, documented disparities, strength-based framing, and resident voice center. Now, the lay of the land has changed dramatically with the introduction of AI. AI by itself is not going to get you what you need, but AI in conjunction with what you're doing will get you what you need. Basically, we're talking about 6 different areas of concentration. AI can help you in fundraising, communication, task automation, data insight, content generation, and program delivery. I'm going to take a second and let you dive into this information, but I think it's clear to you tonight. This is one of the most comprehensive grant and nonprofit programs that you will take. Tonight, we have anywhere from scholars to seasoned grant writers coming to learn about the next phase in nonprofit development. So let me back up and give you an opportunity to take in how AI is changing the landscape. So even if you're a nonprofit with no staff or a nonprofit with 25 staff, AI can change the playing field. Now, that's as important as going after those grants. When we talk about organizational capacity, we need to talk about board development and best practices. When it comes to your board should have a diverse expertise, clear roles, regular training, and engagement. Let me step back for a second and let you digest this information. And by the way, we do provide board training for nonprofits. And every nonprofit is different. Some nonprofits don't need the level of expertise as your larger nonprofit. That being said, let me back up and let you take in these 4 different components for board development. A strong board development increases your chances of getting that grant. So, so you got your board together. You got all of that information together that we talked about. Now let's talk about what are the best strategies for doing fundraising. We start with donor cultivation, multi-channel appeals, monthly giving programs, and grant diversification. Let me step back and let you digest this information. And this information becomes relevant as you grow as a nonprofit. As you go as a nonprofit, you should have all of these pieces in order. It's not necessary true with someone that's getting started. Okay, let's move on. Another key consideration when funders are looking at funding an organization is the volunteers that come to the table with that nonprofit. That shows the funder that people actually buy in and believe in your vision. This component is called Volunteer Management Essentials. And it's essentially broken up into 3 areas. First is recruitment. Second is onboard training. And second is recognition of those volunteers. Let me back up for a second and let you digest. So we're moving along. We're yet to get to the best part at the end that's going to talk about how do nonprofits, oh no, I'm sorry, how do funders rate nonprofit proposals? This could be the difference between you getting the grant and not getting the grant. All right, now we're moving to the next section. This section deals with risk management. When we talk about risk management, we talk about three areas: financial control, legal compliance, and crisis planning. Let me back up for a second and let you digest this information. So don't worry about it if you're not getting all this information, because the PowerPoint presentation will be sent to you if you complete the end of the class. Let's move on. Community engagement. I think that in a lot of time, nonprofits just pop up and say they want to save the world without at least engaging in the very community that they're in to get buy-in. This is the community engagement strategy. And by the way, funders do look at your engagement, community engagement strategy. So the community engagement strategy is broken up to four areas: need assessment, partnership, inclusive planning, and feedback loops. Let me step back and let you digest this information. So, excellent, you're still here. You're still moving strong. But the last part is the part that shows whether or not your grant proposal will be funded. Now, if you are going to be successful, somebody has to know who you are and what you do. And you do this by marketing and communication. Two areas that you have to make sure that you accelerate in. And as you know from earlier, AI can help you do this. First is your digital strategy. And next is your brand development. Let me step back for a second while you digest this information. Okay, now we come to the part that funders look at and determine whether or not they're going to fund you. This is what I consider one of the five things that they look at, and that's your financial sustainability model. And there are several ways that you can create a financial sustainability model. First is earned income. Second is endowment building. And finally, plan giving. Each of the nonprofits out here is at different stages, but every nonprofit should at least embrace the first, which is earned income, creating a social enterprise venture in order to sustain your sustainability and thus not depend totally on grants for your operation. Now, how are you going to measure the data? The other important component that partners look at when they're going to fund a nonprofit is your data management and impact measurements. And they look at three areas. They look at first your data collection. How are you collecting the information to show what you're doing and who's participating? Your analytics tools, your reporting tools. I'm going to step back and let you dissect this information. This is a critical tool in being able to get that grant and able to show that you understand data management and impact measurement. And by the way, like all of the sections that we talk about, AI can help you to do this. Now we come to the other area that funders want to see come into play. and that's partnership development. That includes strategic alignments, memorandum of understanding if you're going to end up in partnership, and collective impact. That is, collectively you can work better when you join other nonprofits that are fighting for the same cause. Okay, and then finally, before we get to the main part related to how nonprofits scored when their grants are submitted. Before we get there, let's talk. So if you made it this far, that means you understand your potential. We can work with you whether you're a nonprofit that's getting started or if you've been around for a while. What you're going to see is that we understand how to put together that successful grant. If you're a ninth grader, if you're a college grad, it doesn't make a difference. The approach is the same. And our funding is affordable, as well as the ability to get tied into our resources by way of installment plan. Talk about advocacy and public policies in four areas of concentration. First is policy research, grassroots, grassroots mobilization, coalition building, and direct engagement. Let me step back for a second and let you dive in to this information. Okay, now we're ready. And this is one of the latest parts I've added to the grant and nonprofit development class. How, how are this next part goes to what do funders do when they score your nonprofit and why it's so important that you have at least an 80 to 100% on your score. Wait, score when you submit your proposal. Oops, that means one of the ways to score is that funders are want to take in, and we talked about this earlier. Funders want to take in these different conversations that we had earlier, the different components of what grants funders consider. Now, once the funder consider you for a grant, now it is how will your proposal be scored? So this is the nonprofit grant application scoring. This particular piece represents part of a larger workshop that I had on getting really deep into how funders score proposal. But for the purpose of this proposal, I'm just giving you a condensed presentation. But I think this will get to the point. So what happens is that grant proposals can get up to 100% score. And when the group that's looking at your grant and scoring your grant, they break it up into different sections which equate to 100%. 20% is going to go to your organization strength. Another 20% is going to go to your community need. Another 20% is going to go to feasibility and impact. And still another 15% is going to go to focus area alignment. And then the last two, which is 15% for your argument, your alignment with funders, and then finally 10% for program design and collaboration. For the purposes of this particular class, I'm only going to go over the last two components. That is alignment with funders and program design. For the other remaining ones, join us in our full class on how proposals are scored. So when it comes to the program and evaluation collaboration, we talked about that earlier. That's one of the things. When it comes to your program design, it should be evidence-based and evidence-informed model. When it comes to your collaboration, you should have the name of who are those people that's collaborating with you. And you should have some other things. So let me step back and let you look at the other things you should have as well. Okay, that program design is so very, very important, as well as those folks that you collaborate with. This signals that the organization connects and that the organization does not work alone. Okay, now let's talk about alignment with the funders. This is critical when you begin to look at making sure that your grant proposals align with what the funders are looking for. And we've broken this into four levels. Level one is surface alignment. Level two is mission alignment. Level four, or level three is strategic alignment. And then finally is partnership alignment. So let me back up for a second and let you take in this information. There are 5 different levels when it comes to where your proposal will be placed. Let's go over the 5 ones. The first one is inadequate. The second is it's irrelevant. The third is it's adequate. And the fourth is it's strong. And the fifth, and that's what we teach, is exceptional. So you go from inadequate, all the way up to exceptional. You always want to have an exceptional grade. Now, let's talk about translating your scores into a recommendation. If you're looking at getting a 80 to 100% recommendation, and we talked about how to get that, then this is how you do that. This is how you get that exceptional grant. Second, and this normally grants are graded from 80 to 100%. If you are, well, not graded, but any grades from 80 to 100% is considered exceptional. And if you want your grant to be 80% to 100%, you go over what we've talked about already. Then if your grant proposal falls into the second category, that is 60 to 79, then it's considered conditional. This is score 60 to 79. And then finally, and it's not recommended, your score is 0 to 59. Most nonprofits, especially new and upcoming nonprofits, and even nonprofits that have been around, Because of this different approach to how nonprofits are funded, and because so many nonprofits are gone for a small pot of money, a lot of nonprofits, even nonprofits that's been around a long time and considered to be strong of nonprofits, can find themselves with a score of 0 to 59. Thank you for attending tonight's class. In addition to this class, we also provide training in terms of how to write a grant. This is a 10-lesson course. It's important because in learning this course, you can actually make side money if you want, if someone is looking for a way to bring in money. Grant writers can bring in anywhere from $50 to $1,000 an hour and putting together a grant, depending upon the person's budget. It's also important if you are a non-profit organization that you take this course, because it's important that you understand that in this climate, you need to be able to write more than one grant. And you don't want to write 10 grants and have to bring on 10 different grant writers or one grant writer and pay that grant writer 10 times. You should have that inside. As a matter of fact, if truth be told, funders look to see if you got that sustainability on board inside your organization. Do you have a grant writer? Today we face the reality of the crisis reshaping nonprofits nationwide. Shrinking resources, rising needs, and a sector stretched to its limits. But we also proved something powerful. Nonprofits are not powerless. You now have the tools, the strategic and systems to stabilize your organization, strengthen your mission, and lead with confidence in this new climate. The next step is action. If we apply what we learned today, you won't just protect your organization, but you'll build a stronger, more powerful nonprofit sector for communities that depend upon us. So, in closing, if you're that nonprofit that has been around and you're doing the work, but you just can't see or you just can't connect to the funding, contact us. We work with nonprofits with no staff and nonprofits with staff. But here's what we know. In 2026, the greatest threat to nonprofits will reveal itself. That's why this workshop is so critical at this time. When we talk about how do we change the narrative, we change it with sure ways that's evidence-based and data-driven to show how we can operate in this new environment and bringing in the funding that's so desperately needed. We've worked with nonprofits nationally to help them develop that nonprofit. And the one thing that I take away from working with all those nonprofits, that nonprofits rise. Because nonprofits are people that don't talk about it, they be about it. And that's why we were created, to help you fulfill your dream. Contact us by way of phone or by way of email. But we're here for you. Like no other time before, the crisis is here. No matter what level of service that you need, we're here to provide that service to take you to the next level. And we do it to fit your budget so that it's affordable and you can pay in installments. Our one objective is to allow good people that do good things to continue the work that they do that's good for so many people that are facing bad times.